Any public comment? Okay, moving on. So we will move to, any comments about the December 19th meeting minutes? Jim?
There were some spelling errors, but the only one I will call out is the difference between affect and effect.
Oh,
Lincoln didn't catch that. Actually, the review didn't.
I think
Thank
there
you.
were only 3 lines in the minutes.
So I thought the minutes were very good.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Okay, moving along. So the minutes are approved. And Chair and Commissioner reports. Anyone?
I won't report on any land bank places that I have visited in the last few weeks, but I did want to just mention that I had so many comments around the Zylstra closure, the 6-month closure that we implement on the east side of the preserve to protect wild birds using the lake. There seems to be a lot of sentiment that the length of the closure, they don't understand it, and also the lack of ability for dogs to be on the west side. I think I mentioned this before. And I do try to explain this every time, but I'm wondering if it's an opportunity for some public outreach. Perhaps in the context of go see the birds of Zylstra. You know, I'm not trying to aim it at the closure, but I think maybe we could explain that again. And besides that, just the fact that the swans let me know that they really appreciate the opportunity to go from the upper leg to the lower leg on that little creek that we have going. They ride down and then they like to go back up and ride. And so that's very popular.
Very cool.
I think we need a tour.
Music.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that that's something, well, you were just saying that you're looking forward to looking at all the land bank sites.
Mhm.
And I think as commissioners, you do an amazing job getting out to all the different sites. But I think we all would benefit.
Yes.
Somehow
That's a really
getting out
good
on
idea.
more of the sites. And especially, I think, Beaverton, with everything that's going on out there. And, yeah. I will say, I went up Mount Grant the other day, and I often feel this, but, if, I don't know that area that well, and so I just get confused about, well, where does the Lawsonite Trail go, and how do I get back down again? So the maps don't always help me. I ended up on all trails. Maps.
Call me, I'd love to go, but
Oh, okay. Now,
We're not-
where do I go?
it's not a quorum. If we bring our dogs, it might be a quorum. But I'd love to go.
But what
Anybody
a
else?
treat to be on a small island and actually feel a little bit disoriented and lost.
Yeah.
That's Jeff.
Any other
No, I
commissioner comments?
went up Lopez Hill with another commissioner and we did not get lost.
I don't come over and go up Lopez Hill with you because I don't know the trails there.
Yeah. They're fun.
That was me. I was really happy we didn't get lost.
Just a short story about when Turtleback closed and cell phones were just becoming more of a thing. And we received a phone call in the office before we had any real maps or trails, you know, it was very early on, and someone called and said, I'm on Turtleback and I'm kind of lost. Okay, there's some trees, right? Have you tried walking downhill? Like, we didn't know where they were back in there.
Okay.
It's true.
It's true.
That happened.
It happened, really happened. So I think one order of business is to welcome Justin as our liaison. Thank you.
I am thrilled to be here. There was a question on how we select and where we go, but the council's making an effort to get everybody sort of to rotate through all the, get a better understanding of all the global committee work that happens. And I was lucky enough to draw the land bank straw, which is great. And I was just sharing with everybody before the meeting that one of my goals is to set foot on every piece of land bank property that exists this year. So in the spirit of us all getting out to other spaces, I look forward to spending more time outside, which would make my job far more enjoyable.
So do you want to do an update on the interviews that were set up?
I'll let Lincoln do that because I'm just, my feet are not yet wet.
Yeah, no worries. So we have two openings, for the commission. We have 6 candidates. And we have, interviews lined up for Friday, the 6th. With Justin, Peggy and myself, and, a nomination will be made by the liaison, Justin, at the February 10th council meeting. So we'll have, 2 new commissioners in place by the next meeting.
And we have 6 candidates.
6 candidates for 2 spots.
Gonna be a full day.
That's
Mhm.
nice. It's good to have that many
Yeah.
people interested in being part of
It's
it.
wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really wonderful.
That's it.
Okay, I see Vicky is there, partner updates.
Yes, thanks so much, Peggy. Appreciate it. My name is Vicki Edwards. I'm the Conservation Director at the San Juan Preservation Trust. And just want to thank you all. Before the end of the year, you had the Land Bank Commission meeting, an annual meeting, and Angela, Nancy, and I were able to attend that, and just really appreciate the discussions and the thoughtful process and being part of that. And so, thank you so much for including us. We really appreciate our partnership and our collaboration, and look forward to working together on complex conservation opportunities and challenges in 2026. And with that, one of our first projects, and this is one you all are very much aware of, the San Juan Preservation Trust Mount Ben West acquisition. We are scheduled, as per our purchase and sale agreement, to acquire that property on March 31st. We fortunately have had some amazing fundraising and thanks to many of you and our community members in being able to contribute to the project, that with our fundraising and pledges, gifts and pledges included, we're at 90% of what we need to be able to acquire the property. However, we still have $180,000 that we need to be able to close out on March 31st. And our deadline for that is March 23rd, and being able to fundraise that $180,000. So thank you to all who have contributed to this point and shared with others about the amazing project and the future opportunities working with the Conservation Land Bank on a conservation easement in the future that will eventually provide trail public access. And if you don't mind doing another push to get folks to our website and learning more about the project, we would greatly appreciate it. And just really appreciate your support for this project, and really look forward to our work with Lincoln and the prosecuting attorney's office on a future conservation easement once we acquire the property by the end of this quarter. So many thanks to all, and I hope to have really positive news to report at our next meeting as well. Thank you.
Marilyn.
Hi, Vicki. I just have a quick question. I know that you had a matching grant opportunity or matching donation opportunity. I wondered if that was still in existence or whether that date had expired on the Mount Ben West.
Yeah, really good question, Marilyn. Thank you for asking it. And yes, that opportunity is still in existence. And fortunately, the portion that we have fundraised has ensured that we're able to apply for that $750,000 match. And so that takes us up to the 1.5 million once we receive those funds from our anonymous donor. So many thanks to all who got in their pledges early on. And then the $180,000 gap is above and beyond the match requirement. And so we're really close to that and appreciate you asking that, our generous anonymous donor. And every single donation out there, whether it's $5, $1,000, every single donation matters. And that's a testament to the commitment of our community and being able to support projects like this. So thanks for asking that question, Marilyn. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the clarification.
Good work, Vicki. Yeah, I'm impressed at how far you've gotten along there.
Thank you so much, Peggy. It definitely is a collective effort and has taken a community to be able to make this happen. So thank you, and thank you all.
Okay. Now, I think we're probably way ahead of schedule, way ahead. So moving into financial report.
Yep. Okay. All right, this is the fourth quarter of 2025's financial report. It also gives us a chance to look at where we're sitting at the end of the year. This is a draft because the 13th month is still in effect, and the 13th month is an opportunity through the state auditors and our auditor's office to still accept invoices for work done in 2025 calendar year that we hadn't quite been invoiced for yet. So it allows us a couple weeks into January to allow for some contracted projects to still be billed, and then subsequently journal entries made through the auditor's office that still need to be finalized. So these aren't the exact and final actuals, but they're pretty darn close. We aren't expecting anything substantial to be added to this at the end, but I do want to preface at the beginning here that these aren't final year-end numbers, but pretty close. So we can start just by looking at cash. From third quarter to fourth quarter, the conservation area fund cash increased by 1.4 million, and stewardship management maintenance fund with a decrease of 360,000, and the endowment increased by 70,000 for the fourth quarter, with a total of 1.1 million cash increase for the year. You can see where we're sitting at the end of this year at a total of almost 14.5 million in total cash. But always remember that those endowment funds there are for the future funding for the land bank. If we go down, property and taxable value, total value, those will be readjusted in the next year when we have assessments go out, and we do that annually. There is a link to the taxable value that Lincoln updates on an annual basis, and when that comes out, we'll let you guys know. Liabilities, we don't have any short-term debts. The only long-term debts we have are a few bonds, 3 of which will be concluded and paid in full by the end of 2026. And then we will just have 1 bond from there on through 2036, which primarily is for the Turtleback acquisition. So at the end of 26, we will see a significant decrease in bond payments and long-term debt payments.
Aaron, could I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
One of those bonds is Turtleback?
Yes,
And that will be retired before the 20-year anniversary, is that correct?
no, that one
Entirely.
will be the only bond carrying on through 2036.
Oh, that one goes that far out.
Yeah.
That was
Conservation
bonded
futures.
against conservation futures revenue.
Okay. So the other 2 that are bonded are,
The other 3 will be paid off at the end of 2026, this current authorization period that we're in.
And they are, for which properties?
I could send you the list and how the breakdown is, but it's a multitude of properties.
That helps.
Okay, so we'll move down to revenues and expenditures for the fourth quarter and end of the year. We have combined taxes of 1.2. Primarily that is the real estate excise tax, where you can see the breakout on the right-hand side, where it breaks down month by month. For a total of 4.3 million for the year. As you guys know, we were budgeted for 3.5 million for the year, so this was 800,000 over budgeted projection. Thrilled to have that. It allowed us to get a few extra projects done in the fourth quarter for stewardship, things that they, might have had on the books for 26, but we were able to squeak in and get done towards the end. And that's the game we play, as we get to the end of the year. Just seeing where, REIT is and how it's tracking, and, it's a good year. We haven't had this good of a year since, 2023. Last year we took a little dip, weren't sure how that was gonna play out, so we budgeted conservatively and, it exceeded. It's just one of those roller coasters. You're not sure how it's gonna play out. And then, yeah, that includes conservation futures taxes, which were, are always pretty projectable around $350,000 in conservation futures. And then some other small taxes in there also. Next is LGIP interest. This is a really big number for the year at 400,000. That is combined between Conservation Area Fund and the Stewardship Fund. Just again, a good year for the LGIP, which is the local government investment pool, which basically tracks along with the Fed rate. As we know, the Fed's been, dropping their rate. So it's, something we're looking into other investment opportunities here in the coming year, but it's still been pretty strong for what we had seen over the last, 4 years during the pandemic era. So sitting over 4% for most of that year is pretty good. And those are the results by keeping most of our funds in that LGIP account. So that's good revenue for the year also. Conservation buyers program, we didn't have, and that is potential sale of land, sale of easements. We didn't have anything in the fourth quarter. The larger number there for the year, though, is for the North Shore Preserve Conservation easement sale to the Preservation Trust. Donations, we had a couple good donations to help with some possible stewardship or nursery expenses, but they weren't specific, they weren't restricted, so they'll be held in the Conservation Area Fund until it's time to use them. And that's just how the two funds work together. It's money in Conservation Area Fund and transfers to the Stewardship Fund for uses. So once we know specifics, we'll move that money over and use it how it's intended to be used. Grants for the year, really just the one big grant, and that was finishing up the Watmow addition grant with RCO. I think that was Aaliyah or salmon
It's a combination, both aquatic lens enhancement account and also salmon recovery.
Thank you. Yeah, so that was a long time coming. We got that one in there this year, which is great. And nursery sales and leased property, everything's going well there. For budget as a total, we were over budget for revenue at 7% over budget, so that was great for revenue. Moving down into expenditures, administration for the Conservation Area Fund, which is primarily staffing, and then Stewardship, wages and operations, is a little bit more inclusive of some equipment purchases, travel, you know, from island to island, but primarily staffing costs. Those track in the high 90s. Usually when it's a little bit below that 99%, that's typically pertains to when we hire our seasonal staff. Sometimes we get them in when we want, sometimes it takes a little while and they're just not there as long. So that's why it's not quite, you know, that full percentage. Acquisition costs, 99% of budget, and this was from in the second quarter, we had our final payment on the Hauschka-Katy Mountain promissory note of $200,000. We've been making that for 3 years. And then in the third quarter was the Dolphin Bay Road acquisition in the third quarter for 3.4 million. And that was in the third quarter, and that ended up getting budgeted in the third amended budget for the county. Debt payments and site enhancement, which is also another name for capital expenses. You can see that for the year that those are relatively low, 52% and 38%. The 52% for property management and maintenance is primarily because in the third amended budget, we added expenditures for the Beaverton Trail project. We budgeted a little bit over 500,000 for that project to be done through the consultants. Didn't spend all of that. Spent about 200, just under 200,000 to date on that project through the consultants. So that's why that number is significantly lower. And site enhancement, there were some projects, you know, with the biennium budget, and you plan these projects 2 years out. Some projects get deferred, some we decide not to move on. Just kind of a product of that biennial budgeting process. We don't always want to remove projects because we don't know what might occur in the year. So we did leave projects in that we were kind of iffy about. But we, as also along with that 60% threshold that the commission established for spending with revenues, that was not established prior to these projects being added into the budget, but it did help with this notion that we are aware that we want a better balance between revenues and expenditures with both funds. And this is also a process where we're trying to get into that comfort zone of expenses for health of the program as a whole. So we'll typically won't see those percentages of budget be that low in the future. But it is a little bit of a transition, and especially this next year, the only year we did not, the council did not approve the biennium budget. We just approved a budget for 2026. So the numbers will look a little bit different for the next couple of years and how that's tracked. And revenue, so revenues and over expenditures, if you look at the year to date, as the program as a whole, about 1.8 million over expenditures. So fiscal health for the program overall was a good year. Got a lot done, and the program did well, you know, largely with 800,000 over budgeted for REIT as a whole. Ended up being very helpful for the program as a whole.
I remember at the retreat, we talked about when we get the new commissioners on, we're gonna have kind of a financial review. So just kind of wanted to, I wasn't sure if we're gonna do that in one of our meetings or, you know, like whatever. I just wanted to kind of put that back up.
I was definitely prepared if you guys did want to discuss that a little bit, whether it was gonna be at the February meeting where I did a presentation, or if we wanted to do an onboarding outside where I can speak to, new commissioners or existing commissioners in smaller groups.
I'm wondering if we could have financial, committee, subcommittee meeting around that issue. Because one question I always have for other commissioners is everything you want to see in the new format that we have now, or are you interested in additional information? I have a couple of tweaks that I'm hoping to convince Aaron to make, but I think, you know, I always have a tweak, you guys know me. That, because what I do is I listen to the questions come up in the meeting, and I try to think of a way that information can be incorporated into what we're looking at. And I also look at things that are more important and less important when we analyze this level, the finances. So I'm just volunteering to go to a meeting with you and Anne Marie and Lincoln sometime, if we can do that, whether it's before or after we have new commissioners is up to you.
Yeah, I'll-
Mexico? You want us to come down?
I'll coordinate
All
that.
right, just what I was thinking.
I am so glad I'm the liaison to this committee. We had to- I'm in.
I have one other question about the financial report for Lincoln. And well, it's two questions really. Are we going to rename the Dolphin Bay Road Preserve at some point? That leads up to, because I know that when we start calling something the same thing over and over and over, after a while, that's its name. So that's one concern. But my real question is, when we made the decision to purchase that property, we recognized that we were not going to be able to do anything for a period of time. And having the great news from this financial report, I'm wondering if we are still on that same page, or whether we are starting to think we might have assets where we could go ahead and purchase something should it become available.
Well, I have more to say about that.
Oh, forgive me. Okay, then I'll let you.
But I'll let Peter jump in actually about the naming question. If he's there.
Yeah, he's
Peter.
there.
Amy said to.
Peter, are you there?
Yes, sort of.
Sorry, I could not unmute my phone for some reason. Yes, good morning, everybody. And I'm still having trouble getting trying to turn my camera on. Anyway, staff met yesterday on that property for our sort of kickoff planning meeting. I refer to it as a stabilization meeting, where we talked about the ecology of the site, existing conditions, and potential trail alignments, things like that. And that was a good meeting, got some good ideas. And our plan was to kick off the management planning process next month. And we started to talk a little bit about naming, but we didn't get very far with that. But I think we all recognize it's important to come up with a name soon. And Dolphin Bay, the actual bay is just it's a little bit away from that property, so maybe that's not an appropriate name for it, although it is on Dolphin Bay Road. But yeah, we're going to be thinking hard about that very soon. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks. I'm sorry to bring that up during financial discussion. That was sort of an aside.
Well, I want to chime in too, and I definitely think it'd be a good idea to have the budget kind of workshop. And I think if we had it during our meeting, then we don't have a quorum issue. But if we have it outside of our meeting, do we have to set up a separate meeting time, depending on how many people are there?
Yeah, no more than 3.
Right. So that complicates matters a little bit.
Well, let's talk it through at the financial committee and we'll come up with a plan.
Okay. Which for me brings up another question. Do we reestablish committees participation? When do we do that?
Well, one committee that we do need to reestablish is the committee to meet with the Preservation Trust on a quarterly basis. So you're on that at this point, and I think
Happy to stay on that for sure.
I think Brian was on it.
Mhm.
All right, who was the third person?
I was on it a long time ago, and I just suddenly stopped getting emails.
Take it personally.
Just an accident.
Anyway, so
Anyway, so it'd be good to have two more people, for that committee.
And it seems like this might be something we do at our first meeting when we have all the commissioners
Yeah,
there.
right. The finance committee, I think, is set. Cause I don't wanna rock the boat.
We have our claws dug into that.
That's right. Hey, afraid of
Let it go.
the committee member.
You can just stop sending them emails. Excellent, excellent way.
It'll work this time.
It's,
I don't think we have any other actual committees going.
Communication, outreach.
No, that's right, communications.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't remember the communications.
how could you forget?
And you had kind of like a little personnel committee, right?
We did. We had a staffing committee.
Just kind of
We
helping
kind of,
here.
yeah.
We have an ag committee.
And there's an ag committee.
That's true. We have an ag committee, so we're
Sounds to
kind
me
of
like we
going
need a-
off track right now.
But those should happen after we have new members, I think.
Yes,
because
I
there might
totally
be
agree.
Interest.
All right, well, why don't we, maybe at the next meeting, or maybe not, meeting after, maybe, have a conversation about committees and what committees we actually need to have and want to have.
Yeah.
Since every committee we have is extra work for all of you.
And you,
And the staff.
Well, I'm working anyway, so, you're all volunteering. Thank you.
Yeah.
One quick question on the, well, one question, one comment on the budget. Number one, I love the footnotes. Thank you very much.
I was gonna
Really
say the same thing.
so well appreciated. And then the leases, that is only the agricultural leases.
Right, those are
Okay.
the only properties we lease.
That is it.
All right, thank you, guys.
Yeah, I want a second. The footnotes are really, really helpful.
Okay.
Thank you. So, any other comments about budget?
Yeah,
It's looking good.
I have just a quick comment, because I did not, because I'm used to looking at financial reports wherein your assets reflect what you paid for the asset and not for what its current assessed value is. That surprised me. That was something I did not know after 3 years, was that we are calling our assets by their currently assessed value. Nope, I'm not complaining, I'm just saying, that's new information to me.
Yeah, the reason for that is because every year we want to do that calculation of trying to figure out what it might cost people for us to own property. And so the best metric for that is the taxable value of the property.
Mhm.
So that's what we use as our asset number.
And I think Mike asked us to put that in. Mike Pickett wanted that in there, didn't he?
And, and maybe we just need to add assessed value to the title of that line.
Okay.
That's a good idea. Cause that's not obvious. Okay. Moving along. Director's report.
All right, well, I was gonna save this until the end, but Marilyn preempted. So, over the last couple of days, I've had a couple of interesting conversations with an individual. I'm not going to, name names, but we have received a pledge at this point, which is directed toward, directed toward our acquisition on Orcas, the Dolphin Bay Road property. Pledged to basically make us whole. So we haven't received it yet, but we've been awarded a $1.1 million grant for that property. And a neighbor gave us $400,000 to help with that purchase. Making us whole, the total purchase was 3.35 million. So this pledge is for 1.85 million.
Wow.
Really?
Aren't you glad you're on this committee? Instead of
I
like,
just love it when,
Hell.
I love it when $1.8 million falls out of the sky, and I'm hoping to catch the next one.
In Tulum.
That's extraordinary.
It is really truly extraordinary.
It's unsolicited, um, unsolicited pledge. So hopefully we'll have that money come through the door, relatively quickly, and it will go into the conservation area fund. So yes, we can, look at other acquisitions. That's true.
Right. Thank
And
you.
we still have salmon recovery grant out, right?
Salmon recovery grant, we've got a little bit of, work to do with a neighbor, to the south who wanted a little bit more privacy. So as I mentioned previously, we're looking at selling a little sliver of the
Right, right,
property. We'll be doing that. We have to
Right,
complete
got it.
that before we can get the salmon recovery grant money. So we're working hard on that one right now.
Was the salmon recovery grant the 1.1 million then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I got the pleasure of hearing about this gift yesterday, and I just want to say that I think it also speaks to the really great work that Lincoln's doing and that individual's faith in our organization.
Yes.
Good job,
Yes.
really good job. Just keep it up.
No vacation for you.
I just answered the phone. That's what I did.
Do you anticipate, Lincoln, not necessarily the name of that person coming out, but sort of the story of that grant, of that gift?
Yeah,
Being-
I think, it's not gonna be an anonymous donation. I'm
Okay.
hesitant to say that, before it's actually happened.
Yeah.
And, at the next meeting, we'll get the full details.
Yeah, I'm less worried about the name and more worried about the intent and the thoughtfulness that went behind that, a gift of that size as a meaningful piece of
Well,
land bank's work.
we can get into that, but certainly this is an individual who's been very active in conservation in San Juan County and been very generous.
I just wanna, for us commissioners, just footnote the fact that having been on that site, as I think all of us have been, because we had a field trip there, it's so helpful to understand what Lincoln's talking about when he talks about privacy for the south boundary. I just really reinforces to me us being on preserves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's the fellow who was, when we were down the beach, who was right out there. Yeah, makes total sense.
So, great news.
Phew.
Thanks for the meeting. I think we can go now. Other items, so I've got on there the retreat notes, you'll receive those, I just wanted to put that on there, in case people had questions, I'm not planning on going through that in any way, shape, or form, but if you have, questions, let me know or raise them now. John Howell, as always, our facilitator, did a great job of summarizing.
Amazing.
We did go, around and make some edits, and I think that it's a good reflection to have what you were.
And the edit, this says it's a revised draft, does that mean it's the final?
Yeah, that's the final draft. That, yes, the head, we had some issues with the header. I see you have a
I
correction.
had a couple of notes, but one was really, another thanks to Aaron, because I would have revised this to report on his, financial report for this year, which I think has been really helpful to all of us. So that I was not able to review the notes in time for the final edit. Thank you for your report.
Okay, so two of the things that we did talk about at the retreat were the process we've gone through this year to think about how the organization runs, how to make it more efficient, what the structure looks like. So we've had those facilitated series of staff meetings. One of the things that was mentioned at the retreat was this stewardship. I think we were calling it management team. We've changed that to leadership team. So that's the preserve stewards and myself. And our goal with that team is to ensure that we can have more consistent management across the entire archipelago rather than what we've had, which has tended to get a bit siloed in each district. So we've had 2 meetings of that team now, one to basically charter it and decide what it's going to do. And the second meeting was yesterday, which is where we looked at our budget for this year, and we looked at work plans that were based off of that budget and had a really good in-depth conversation about, you know, what it looks like for each of these districts and what's going on, how we're setting priorities. It was extremely helpful. And that's going to lead into the development of work plans for the rest of the staff, which the work plan group also came out of these facilitated discussions. They met yesterday, and so we're gonna have a new format for work plans, and we'll be basically working toward getting all of those done by the end of February, along with staff reviews. So I think there are lots of positive things happening in that regard. Another thing that came out of the retreat was this question of the policy manual and an update to the policy manual. So we'll be working with that consultant to make that happen, both to revise the old material in that manual and also to really flesh it out in the stewardship section. It's pretty bare bones, like our strategic plan was. So those things are happening. Acquisition wise, we're still moving forward with our acquisition adjacent to the Coho Preserve, so across Cascade Creek. And we did receive the grant agreement from RCO, which will basically fully cover the cost of that acquisition. Getting that over to the PA's office for them to look at. And I think that will go back to Jessica, the county manager, to sign. So that's good. We have a survey underway because part of the issue with this acquisition was it's not acquiring parcels, it's part of parcels. So the area needs to be surveyed and made clear. We've got a few other things that we need to do. So we're anticipating closing probably sometime this fall on that project. And we've been in contact with the seller. We're all on the same page. We have a few other things to do. I did hear yesterday too, we've had a project going to try and trade property essentially with Orcas Island Park and Rec District, taking the off-leash area that's part of Crescent Beach and flipping that to them to administer, which will also allow them to provide water to the dog park in exchange for property to the south, which is more natural, and that just fits much better with our mission. But in order to do that, we can't just give away property or trade property. It's always more complicated than that. So we needed to establish market value of both of those. We just got the appraisal in yesterday, so we'll be taking that forward. We'll have to have a public hearing because it's conveying a property from us. So I would anticipate being able to finish that maybe in, I don't know, March. We'll see.
That would be unbelievable.
It's been a long time.
Which part of it?
Just finalizing that, I was on the Orcas Park and Rec District for 10 years. And so this has been a discussion, not for 10 years, but for a lot of those years. And so to get this complete and sort of check this box for everybody will be fantastic.
So I was wondering about the water rights on Cascade Creek. And we're working with like a water trust on that, right? A water trust fund or something. I
Good.
forget what that group's called.
Good question. And I think, Peter, do you want to
Sure.
lead off on that one?
Sure. We've had a contract with the Washington Water Trust for several years, and that's basically what they do: buy water rights and in this case, put them in stream. So we have 2 grants, one from Department of Ecology and one from RCO to purchase a portion of the water rights there. And so we hired Washington Water Trust to help with the negotiations, to, the due diligence around the water rights themselves, because they're quite complex, and then legal support if we come to a deal. So they're working on that. We've had a lot of communication lately with the water rights owners, and things have shifted a little bit. They're interested in actually selling some combination of selling and donating all of the water rights plus the land associated with the dam over by Cascade Lake. So we've got some conversations ongoing right now, and are hoping that we can come to some sort of agreement here in the next month or so, because the ecology grant is set to expire in March. I have a meeting with the grant manager today to talk about possibly extending it a little bit. And those the grants cover much of the Washington Water Trust time, probably not all of it, depending on how much we end up using them. But is that
Yeah, any opportunity we have to get word out is probably, good, just because there's a group of people that are really interested.
yeah, I think I know the group you're talking about, but yeah, if you want to connect after this,
Okay.
talk to you.
Sure.
So just to fill in a little bit, with this sale and donation, I think our goal is clear. It's to provide water to Cascade Creek so that we can have spawning salmon successfully. The other water rights that are water rights to run the hydropower plant, we're not particularly interested in owning those, and then the water control structure property as well. So we've been talking to state parks about whether they might be interested in holding the property where the water control structure is. They're adjacent to it on 3 sides, so kind of makes more sense. The structure does need to be brought up to standard before that would happen, and I think the owners are willing to do that, but we've got a lot of negotiation conversation ahead of us. So
A lot of moving parts.
a lot of
Thank you.
Thanks for that additional detail, Lincoln. Yeah, it's quite complex. It's gone from us trying to buy just a small portion of a water right to something very different. And yeah, parks will be a key player in that.
Thank you.
Would that be our first purchase of water rights? The land bank?
well.
That's complicated.
We thought we had purchased water rights at Silstra, but it hasn't quite worked out that way.
Well,
To be resolved.
It's not, we may have.
Water is always messy.
But, that has to be resolved.
And is state parks in a financial position to be able to take that on?
All we have at this point is that the area manager is willing to advocate for this. So we don't know, what's gonna happen.
How much property is we talking?
It's not that big. Peter, do you know, is it 5 acres?
I think it's only 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah, it's not large, but it's a key piece of the park, really. It's kind of a little cutout of what should be parkland, so it's a natural fit. And ideally, if Parks was to take it on, it would come with the dam having been upgraded and approved by the state. So they're probably not looking to take on unnecessary liability. But as Lincoln noted, the owners appear willing to do the necessary upgrades to get it signed off on before it transferred. But the land bank may need to play some role here. I'll let Lincoln comment on that, maybe.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of details to work through. This is just so everyone's clear, the water control structure dam is on Cascade Lake, so it does really make a lot of sense for, state parks to be able to control that.
That's the structure that's down at the end of the lake. So like when you're going on the trail,
Walk across.
you go across that.
It's,
that right?
it's close to the road. It's not, there's a bridge that you walk on the trail
Mhm.
that crosses over, a little bit farther to. That's, all I've got.
It's great news. And fingers crossed.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're ready for some new challenges.
No.
Always ready for new challenges. Oh. That is the name of the game.
Never doubt, there will be. Okay, what would you like to do? We're way ahead of schedule.
Well, Tanya, you have to, when do you leave?
Pretty soon.
Well, why don't you see if you can crank through communications? And
I can crack through that.
Yeah.
Let's see. So upcoming events, we've got a couple planting parties. Monday will be on the west side. That was a canceled one due to rain. So I think Sean has got a goal of getting the next 2,000 plugs in by the end of the week, month. And then January 31st, we'll be at Crescent Beach, doing a planting party there after all the forest thinning and now, coming back from that. And then, what else? I don't know. We'll do great backyard bird count again. So some birding events in February. Still sorting through some of the activities, but, I'll have a press release out probably end of January, maybe beginning of February. And then, looking at the 2026 goals that Lincoln shared, just to expand a little bit more on those. For myself, I've seen, videos are more and more popular on social media, so going to work on more of those, more reels, more videos, hopefully education focused. So I'll be reaching out to staff to make sure what I'm putting together is actually true before they go out, so they'll edit them or help me with those. I've done a couple webinars to try to up our game as far as social media. It's ever evolving, so hopefully that will be helpful. And then on the expansion, on some of the things that have happened here, there's been requests. We've been pretty lucky with Alchemy Arts on San Juan Island. They've been very generous with their time. So hoping to expand some art and nature opportunities on Orcas and Lopez. So work on that. And then also we've been really popular here, the senior walks with the Mullis Center. And I got a couple in last year with the Orca Senior Center. So I will connect with Orcas again to see if they want to do those, and then try to do the same thing on Lopez so that we can get more folks out. I was surprised at the Mullis Center here, how many of our seniors who've lived here for quite a long time, including the director, had not been on so many properties. So, and they were really well received. And this year we're going to include, Margot will do a nursery tour of Salish seeds and a seed sorting. So I think that'll be fun. And I think we're gonna expand that into the San Juan Island trails too. I'll bring that up at the February meeting. Salish Seeds Nursery Tour. And just still working on the calendar, you know, we've got county fair. We'll discuss maybe after we have new commissioners about community conversations. We want to continue with that. And if so, do we want to change formatting or anything? All of that. That's everything. And of course, the annual report. But I won't have a meeting until probably mid-February with the designer for the book. Maybe in May, if that's the case. Oh, and Turtleback. Turtleback turns 20. It'll be a lot.
20 years of it,
Yeah.
And so that's a partnership kind of thing with Preservation Trust.
Yeah, we'll work on
Sounds
some
big
things with
event.
them. We're definitely doing, we haven't gotten the details sorted, but we will do March Turtleback March again. And that's usually the weekend of the equinox spring equinox. So I think that this year that is a Saturday, the 21st. Is what we'll do. More to be revealed.
Lots of swag. for the 20th.
Only if it's volunteer related.
Yes. I'm sure it will be.
If you're finished, I wanted to jump back to another financial question that I forgot all about. We have $20,000 unrestricted funds for that type of thing. Do we have a plan to utilize any of that?
We talked about ideas with volunteer. It's still, yes, there are some plans. I guess that's the short answer. Yeah,
Yes
Just-
or no?
still some things to work out. Mhm.
Good.
That's the gist of it.
Yeah, you've got a full plate coming up.
Always
Always.
fun things.
So, do you want to take a break?
Sure, let's take a break and then we can come back and talk about solution.
Okay. Good, so we'll take a.
Audio.
All the time looking out the window in my church.
Okay, here we are back again. So we had Tanya's stewardship, outreach and communication report. So now we'll move into the stewardship report. You, Lincoln, I believe.
Stewards.
Stewards,
Well, the stewards, yes. But do you want to,
They
do you
always
want to
have-
line it up? or do
they
you
always
want-
have something to say.
Okay, then we'll do it that way. Peter's right there. Peter, do you want to start?
I feel like I kind of said my piece about Cascade Creek and that we met yesterday out at the Dolphin Bay property. I don't know what else there is to beyond what's in the stewardship report. Everything's going great. Excited about a new year. A lot of rain recently and a little bit of erosion here and there, but nothing terrible. And happy to entertain any questions.
How are the culverts doing up on Turtleback?
The culverts are doing great. We did have one little issue, and it was the only culvert we didn't change. It was a nice sized culvert, like a 30-inch pipe, but it had been installed pretty flat. And I debated whether to pull it out and decided, oh, we'll just let that one go. And that's the one that plugged. So it got a branch and it scoured a little section of the road, but it was compared to years past where rain like that would have wiped out a couple miles of road. It was a few hundred feet and it was easily fixable. So yeah, things look good up there.
And what's the progress? Maybe it's in here, but progress on the parking area at Turtleback.
Well received, all finished. Looks good. Later this month, we're going to plant the field south of that parking lot to Gary Oaks, which was always the plan. That's a precursor to a future loop trail through that field. But we got all the blackberry down a couple months ago, and we'll get we ordered a number of larger oaks, so we'll plant those at the end of the month in a kind of a meandering curve pattern that will allow us to mow there for a few more years as those get established, and eventually we'll cease to mow that field, which will be nice.
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Yep, go for it.
Peter, I just have a short question about that parking area. Will there still be the ability to see from the parking area out to the water as there is right now?
Yeah, I mean, oak trees are pretty porous visually, and I think they'll enhance the view, but not block it. And when they get, an oak tree ideally gets 80 feet tall and 80 feet wide, and but with a lot of space in between. But it'll be 100 years before that happens.
Well, we'll be gone by then, but my question sort of has to do with how we make areas accessible, land bank areas accessible to people who are unable to hike or leave their vehicles, for instance. And that happens to be a place where one who is immobile, not able to hike, and have a lovely view while everybody else in the group goes for a hike.
Yeah. I mean, that's the main driver for our plans to put a loop trail around there is it'll be a flat, easy trail for people who can't make the mountain. And I really, I mean, maybe I'm biased, but I think the oak trees will only enhance the view. Right now, it's just a grass field. And it'll just be, it'll filter the view a little bit, but the oak trees will be part of that view, I think, in a really good way. And you'll be able to see the water.
Give you the opportunity to see a prettiest dusky winged butterfly from a car.
I'm not complaining, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
continue.
And also
Yes.
hopefully some wildflowers,
Yes.
instead of grass. So
But it definitely makes sense to keep the idea of a view corridor in mind.
Anybody else have any questions for Peter? Good job.
thanks.
Should we go for Amanda? How about you?
Hi everyone. I don't have a lot to report for Lopez. We have received a draft of the Lopez Preserve Forest Health Assessment. So I've been looking at that and have a meeting with Rain Shadow, who did the assessment next week, so we can kind of work through some of the recommendations, and then we should have a final report soon that we can share and talk about with the commission. Been doing a little bit of work at Richardson, getting closer to opening up that area, the trail there. It's kind of informally open. Certainly people in the neighborhood walk it and appreciate it. So I think once we have some signs up and a little parking area, more people will stop by and enjoy that nice little spot. The water level at Richardson Marsh has been so variable all winter. When we get these big rain events, it just fills right up, and then a couple day, a week without rain, and it'll be pretty low again. So it's been really interesting to see the changes there. Uh, what else? I ran into Peggy on a walk yesterday, so that was nice. Just got to chat, catch up.
Well, one thing you talked
And
about was, oh, go ahead.
go for it, Peggy.
Well, one thing you mentioned was, I think BLM doing trying to organize the parking down at Watwell.
Yeah, so I've had some good discussions with BLM recently. They did do some work at Watmow that they had been planning just to designate parking down there. They've been trying to improve the situation, which is just that in the summer there is not enough parking and it's really crowded and there's not enough turnaround space. More and more people are starting to park up on the road and just walk down, which does help. So they installed some parking barriers, parking blocks, and old fire hose, just to delineate where the parking spaces are. So we'll see how that works. It's a little more organized down there. It's not just freestyle. And I've also talked with BLM about we're gonna try to get like an MOU, some sort of cooperative agreement, just for how we work together down at Watmow, since they do own the parking area, but we benefit and kind of contribute to the maintenance of that so we can access our preserves. And then I'm also meeting up with Owen. He's the BLM recreation planner later today, and we're going to do a little bit of vegetation clearing alongside the road and driveway to improve access.
And just going back to the question of the forest assessment, which we did complete on Orcas, and we've been doing work that was identified in that assessment. Now we've got one for Lopez, we're gonna have one for San Juan. And I think one of the things we talked about yesterday as part of this stewardship leadership team was getting to the point where we have these assessments and we can take them and really identify key priorities and work our way down that list, but in a county-wide fashion. So we can be assured that we're addressing the critical safety issues, the critical need for restoration of particular areas, but trying to do that in as comprehensive a way as we can. So we're some ways away from that vision, but that's kind of the direction that we're headed.
So in saying that, I think that's a great idea, but are you talking about making that assessment available to other county departments? Or
No, it's
and talking about
it's just-
collaborative?
It's just for land bank properties.
Okay.
But
Mhm.
so, you know, obviously there are other properties of public ownership that are a question, and the community wildfire. What's the full name of it?
Protection plan.
Protection. Yes, so they did take a more holistic view of this. And there are, I think, some recommendations that have gone along with that. But we do talk about this at terrestrial managers level periodically. This is just what we could do as an organization is really focus on, you know, what are our priority areas and what should we be doing about it. Part of our problem right now, obviously, is funding.
Yeah.
So it's very expensive to do forest management. We've been fortunate up to this point to find funding to do things, and there's some of that still floating around, but obviously we're gonna be in a lean period, so it's gonna be more difficult. That means, you know, getting the assessment done, getting the stage set. This is a good time to work on, in the hopes of having some resources in the future.
So does any of that funding come through WDFW, or is most of it coming from DNR?
DNR from the primary source.
And does the conservation district get any money for that as well? Is,
They
That's
do,
more
and
for
it,
the
you know,
private
comes in
member.
different pots, so, Doug might wanna comment on the riparian piece that's happening at Mount Grant.
Sure. I was just to say that the pipeline for how funds were coming to conservation districts and coming through DNR, a lot of that was kind of funneled from federal sources that have dried up. So the money that was available for forestry is not, there's not as much, and there's a lot of competition. So a lot of people had projects kind of in process that this rug got pulled out from underneath. So what has opened up is the State Conservation Commission with their riparian grant program, and I don't completely understand all of this, but they restructured how they're doing that program. It sounds like for several years, a lot of the money was getting funneled to particular projects where it was all being utilized. So they've opened it up a little bit more broadly, and our conservation district has applied for, submitted a bunch of potential projects, and most of those were funded. And so for San Juan Island here, there's 2 projects that we have that were funded, and we're now developing actually project description. It's kind of a backwards way of doing it, but that's the process. One of those is Upper Zylstra Lake, and continuing to do some of the riparian enhancements around the reservoir. Then part of that is going to focus on bolstering work we've already done in one area, and then kind of building off of that into kind of an additional area that is a pretty degraded wetland. The second site is at Mount Grant, And it's immediately adjacent to where we've been doing the landscape scale restoration project. And that's gonna build basically on that zone. They were given the ability to do a 200-foot buffer from a very small wetland and ephemeral stream that enables us to basically run from that bottom of the slope where the stream and wetland is all the way up to this restoration site. There's about $60,000 available in that will be utilized over about a 2-year time period. So we'll probably be able to work through, depending on the scope of work, 5 to 10 acres, something like that. No more than that. Yeah, we're still working the scope of work on that. So.
Is that money from Ricard through the conservation district? Pretty much spoken for at this point.
Yeah, and again, it was allocated to them from the State Conservation Commission to specific projects, even though those projects were not completely defined. It's like project area kind of.
I just have one question going back to the forest assessments. Since we're evaluating our existing holdings, we do have a method to do a similar analysis of prospective or future parcels related to the same issue. I'm assuming.
Related to what?
Well, if we are evaluating the preservation of a particular parcel, I assume that forest assessment will be part of that evaluation. I'm hoping it will be part of that evaluation, so we understand what its needs would be. And if we have a new parcel coming on board, that same thing will apply.
Yeah, I don't know how, obviously, we can only do the assessment on what we've got.
Okay.
And so if we're carrying that forward, and trying to look at prospective properties, we can certainly take some of those criteria that were used for the assessment and apply it. So we have at least decent understanding of what we might need to do and can present that during the acquisition process.
Thanks.
Peter has his hand up. Peter has.
Oh, Peter.
I just wanted to add to Lincoln's comments, so we talked yesterday also about, once we have a good sense of the condition of all of our forested properties and we can, help prioritize that will enable us hopefully to establish a sustainable, consistent amount per year that we spend on forest management and to shift that work around, to address the key areas. Because there is so much work to be done, but it seems like it would make sense for us to maybe establish a contract or contracts with forest managers to sort of move around and address the priorities, across our whole portfolio in a consistent level of expenditures year after year.
Thank you.
So does the assessment identify, do they prioritize actions? Does the report prioritize actions, or is that up to us?
Yeah, there's a summary table at the end of the Orcas ones, for example, that kind of indicates different characteristics of those. And it's not just a whole preserve, but the preserves are divided up into units based on the forest conditions. And then, for a given preserve, it'll identify, fuel breaks or thinning in certain areas, and then kind of loosely, what the priorities are among those. And so if we, when we finish assessments on San Juan, we'll have to pull those tables together and apply our own filters and kind of decide collectively where to work first and, what the order of operations will be.
Great.
But informed by those assessments and the conditions in the forest.
Yeah.
But that's a great question because our consultant, as any forestry consultant, is wanting to do lots of things.
Yeah.
We have to really figure out how to prioritize them because we can't afford to do lots of things. We need to really focus on the more critical ones.
But, and this process will allow our own experts to become even more expert.
Well, I look forward to seeing them.
Yeah, and I think there's also just that, like, we may still employ a variety of strategies ranging from, you know, having this consistent approach of prioritizations and working with contractors. It's not gonna stop us from looking for outside funding for specific projects, especially for ones that might be bolstered by, you know, having these assessments. And then, of course, we work with volunteers, we work with the Conservation Corps. There's some opportunities, I think, with that to continue working on some projects as well, so.
And when is San Juan scheduled? Are we
It's
scheduled?
not scheduled yet.
Not scheduled now. Good. Doug, you're up.
Well, I was asked to talk a little bit about the Beaverton Trail project. And I'm gonna kind of rely on Lincoln for a couple of these things, as I haven't had a good opportunity to check in with Rachel much since I've been back from the holidays. I've been in the field and around to different things. So if I get some of this wrong, step in. But we are a little concerned. We are getting a little bit behind on some of the plan for our schedule, and Rachel's doing a really great job of kind of recognizing that starting to happen and reaching out to our folks and kind of putting some pressure on them to step up. Part of that was due that we had requested from WASDOT an exception or a variance from their normal trail standards. For these transportation type trails, their typical starting point is 15 feet wide with at least 1 foot to 2 foot shoulders and a paved surface. So yes, right? And so what we requested was to go down to the kind of absolute bare minimum, which is 8 feet wide and a gravel surface trail. And as well, that as we get deeper into the preserve, where we get into a little bit steeper slope and things, that we shift from the design standards from those typical AASHTO things that have they prefer being at less than 5% slope, that we shift to the Forest Service Trail Accessibility Guidelines. So we're still using a federal standard, but just it's a different type of standard. Long story short, that they told us it would take about 2 weeks to review that information. It ended up taking about 2 months. And the end of that, though, is very positive. It's looking like that is indeed what we are going to be able to do. So that's really great. So in addition to that, some of the work that's been happening is around the design of the marsh crossing. There's still some real challenges with figuring out which of different options we want to try and use for the crossing. One thing that was being toyed with for a while, the consultants had found a prefabricated kind of bridge type span that can span 240 feet free, which has a lot of allure to it, because you would be up above the majority of that crossing and would just need to be kind of doing difficult construction just at either edge, where it's a little bit shallower into reaching bedrock and good support for pilings. It sounds like that may still be on the table, but there's some other designs that are being considered. And coupled with this, something that's going to greatly affect the design is what seismic standards we are going to be held to. The process for that seems also a little bit unusual, because it sounds like the state position for the person who's usually kind of helps support and review that is vacant. So we've been asked to kind of come up with something and present it to our local building department, and that's a process. There's a meeting this afternoon to talk about the sort of design options and seismic considerations. we are working, towards this 30% design. And, that, well, it was anticipated to be happening in January. Right now, that's looking, like we'll have that in February. And that's really where our comfort spot was with, starting to do some of the public outreach. Because we really didn't want to bring to the public these things that, concepts that we were working with when, there was still a lot of variation, especially this design standard. Like if they came back and telling us we were going to have 15-foot 5-page trails, that would put some pretty serious questions on the viability of this project. So as we have some of these questions that, are answered and really kind of give us some framework, to get to this sort of 30% design, that's where we're looking at trying to, kind of engage the public. And likewise, my understanding, was you were working with Rachel to pin down a date for, site tour for, commission. And did that end up happening? I was on my hands and knees, in a puddle crawling through Hawthorne when I was getting this text, so.
Oh, fun.
We don't have anything set, but the things that we want to have is our public meeting following that 30% design standard, but getting people out on the ground. So, our the staff have it all, the commission has put out, the council wants to go take a look. And so we're going to be setting these things up over the next few months. Yes.
And we're working with a consultant that we hired, and so a lot of what you're talking about, we're doing this, they're taking the lead on it. Is that going well?
It's going mostly well, I would say. Again, we kind of, it's always difficult around the holidays for everything. Just so many people are gone, the days get short, all of those issues. And one of the sort of lead people we're working with was working remotely from India for about 6 weeks or so. So that maintained the work, but it wasn't as seamless as we were led to believe that. But it wasn't also the end of it.
To my point about commissioners being familiar with preserves, my original understanding was that there would be a site visit, at least a site visit, see the site, last month. And I don't know whether that has been scheduled yet, and I don't know how many of our mini commissioners have actually been out to the site and understand what it looks like. So if we aren't gonna have a commission, review, then I would volunteer to go for a hike with anybody that wants to go see the site.
I think they're pinning down the date. That's the Lincoln was.
That would be included, is allowing the commissioners to see.
So that would be with the consultant and Rachel, or
Probably
Rachel?
not the consultant.
No, not with a consultant. Yeah, we're just still working bills, but we're gonna figure it out.
So I have a question about the trails here, and I get the distance, the width and all that stuff. But are we talking about wood on pilings? Are we talking about wood over marshland? Are we talking about concrete? What kind of trails are we talking about here? And how in the long run are we planning to maintain this structure? And I'm really concerned at the retreat. A lot of people talked about the Anacortes walkway there, and I'm somebody that uses that lot. And there's tremendous liability on the maintenance of this kind of thing. So I want to put that out there. And then at some point, we need to talk about where else in the government we can get help. Like, I would assume that this is something that the tourists will use. And I think we should be getting lodging tax to help us with this, because this is like really a big deal. It's an expensive project. So, can we talk about what it's going to be made of? So I can at least in the middle of the night kind of conceptualize it.
I prefer not do that for the boardwalk portion. The other part, it will be gravel surface
Uh-huh.
for the trail. And for the boardwalk, some of our considerations, it's a natural area, we don't want to make something that's an homage to landscape architecture that, is some giant shiny thing. We want it to be, what does Rachel call it, elegant, simple solution. We want it
Kind
to
of like
be
what they did at the
something
Grand Canyon.
that fits the site, that blends in, that you're more immersed in the site than you are in the thing that you're on. So natural materials would be lovely. Some of the design considerations, we may need to have light have to have passage through, like with docks, which would limit our ability, like to say, have wood as a surface for the boardwalk. We don't know that yet. So some of these things we have to get through the process a little bit to have clearer answers on. For that free span, almost certainly would be, you're gonna have like a truss structure built into the handrail. I don't really know any other way you're going to do that. And then for that sort of span, that's not gonna be timber, so that'd probably be steel or aluminum or something like that. Don't know. So we're in the process right now trying to find out what the options are so that we can, then be able to present those. Does that make some sort of sense?
Sure. And the Grand Canyon was a joke.
Well, we
You know
have
what they did
suggestions,
there.
We received requests a couple of times to consider a suspension bridge, for instance.
Right.
To do a suspension bridge at this site, it would be about 600 feet long. Visually, from both
It's
sides, you can see
really
this
this
giant
is-
structure. That's
Right.
not what we're about. That's not what we're wanting to do. That's yeah. So that's off the table. But
Well, and the selection of the group, the consultant that's working on this, we looked at different projects that they've done before, so there was a sense of kind of compatibility with this understanding of aesthetics. In my mind.
Could you just address the slippage of the schedule and how it would affect our ultimate need to have the project under contract in September?
Sure. So one of the great things that Rachel has brought to this in reading very carefully through the manuals that we're working under, she found that their own interpretation of their manual was wrong. We don't have to have the contracts done by September 15th. We have to have the design done. And then once the design is done and approved, then we have a timeline of when we have to have this submitted for bids for contract.
Does that include permits by September 15th?
Yeah. That has to be part of the final design. So that pushed us, I'm trying to remember what it was, 6 to 8 weeks longer in terms of our timeline that we were working with. It's still a tight timeline, and when we hit that threshold, we don't know. It's been indicated that there is a means to ask for an extension, but we don't know what that looks like, and that may have to do with how much progress has been made and how much more work needs to be done. That might affect what type of extension would be required. We have asked that question directly several times, and they've been unable to give us a response. And they being Washington Department of Transportation.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I think the commission has some good insights and questions about this project, and I think it's useful to continue to bring it up in our regular meetings so that we know what's going on.
Tim had a question.
As far as maintenance of projects of this size and stuff, as I understand it, would be corrected if I'm wrong. LTAC is going through a kind of a rebirth or revamping in the coming year, trying to figure out how it might account for some of the impacts of tourism in other areas. So Justin, you may know more about this.
Without going into too much detail, because I'm not the LTAC expert, I would say that LTAC as a concept, and this isn't just in San Juan County, it's statewide. And I think you're right, Tim, impact. So what is the not just the promotion of, but the result of tourism and what needs to be invested. And should those funds be invested in that? And there's some state code that makes that really difficult to understand, because the state code was very much written for the purposes of promotion of. And it's got some silos in there of what the money can and should be used for. And I think communities like ours, generally western facing side of the mountains, that are more recipients of that LTAC funding, are now having to face that discussion. So there is a little resistance to that in those communities that don't, for whom LTAC isn't a huge revenue source. And so their visitors bureaus, their chambers are wanting to hold on to as much control of that for the purposes of promotion as possible. So there's a little friction at the larger state level on doing some of that. So I think, but I do think at least, maybe not this year, but in the coming years at the state level, you're gonna see LTAC discussions be around, can we tap that money to deal with this impact or these types of impacts? It's fair, all that, a very long way of saying your assessment is correct.
So who is the council rep?
Council rep this year, hold on, is Carrie.
And we looked up the timing for applications is August.
You have to get in and on to get it.
Yeah, so, and I think just, this is not specific to LTAC, but so what council did was basically said, there's 3 funding committees that provide sort of direct allocation of money, LTAC, PFAP, which is public facilities, and now we have the cultural resources, PATS, which we've been collecting for 2/3 of 2025. And so those 3 committees will be split between the commissioners or between the council people. Wow. I just went back 20 years. And those will rotate. So we will each sort of year to year move between those 3 committees.
I just want to speak to the likely use of this particular facility. My sense is that it sure will be used by visitors, but at a much smaller amount. When we go out to Lynch Park, you'll see that the users there are locals. And the trail users in particular, very, very consistent use by elderly, by infirmed, by parents teaching their kids how to ride a bike, by young families with kids in strollers. You're going to see, as soon as this is opened up, sports teams, you're gonna see like, go for a run down the trail. We have already heard that from some of the contractors we're working with who are coaches. They're like, I can't wait to have this trail run to send my soccer team down.
Oh, God.
We're going to see use by people who are in town who maybe don't have, like we're near high density housing, relatively speaking, for Friday Harbor. This gives immediate access to nature that's walkable for people who don't necessarily have yards or things, that easy access. That's going to be definitely one of the uses. School groups are going to be in there. They already are using this as an outdoor classroom. From the tourism standpoint, people generally don't come to the islands to visit a sports field complex and then go walk out into kind of a forested wetland site. We'll see from like percentage of tourism, like the West Side Preserve, Dead Man Bay, Turtleback, like all of these sorts of locations are going to have a lot higher percentage of visitor use than I think that this Beaverton site is going to.
It's difficult to imagine this project ever really serving as a transportation link, but that would have provided for tourists and residents something that would really be useful in their daily commutes. So I don't know if there's any way to pitch this to people to use as transportation, but it's a little bit out of the way.
Definitely for the Halverson Road neighborhood,
Which
it
is
will be
pretty
used,
similar.
and then for others, transportation implies efficiency. And so, for people who are out, say, Roche Harbor Road, they can come in Halverson Road and tie in. It's gonna be a smaller demographic, people will do that, but it's gonna be a smaller demographic of people who will make that diversion to come in at this point in time. Should this connect in the future, absolutely, we can see more, transportation. It will really sort of vary and depend on what those people are looking for out of their experience. If you're really going for efficiency, staying on a paved road with a road bike is gonna be a lot better option than, taking a winding gravel road. Unless you're looking for kind of that, slower recreational type experience cooked into your travel.
Okay, I think we're gonna keep coming back to Beaverton discussions. And it'd be great to have Rachel here at some point.
You bet.
To help with that, and the site visit, I think will be really, really important.
Yep.
So do you wanna, and any other reports on your stewardship?
Well, just kind of married to that, thank Marilyn for getting comments back on the Beaverton management plan. We've made edits to that. And that's kind of in final review by Amanda and Peter. Hoping to get that out to the Preservation Trust for review here shortly and keep that process going forward. And we're just trying to get the timing of that with the public process that will happen associated with the trail to kind of work well with each other. So that's the update on that end of things.
Without management plans, I don't know when else I would ever be able to say this, so I'm gonna say it now. Doug and I have talked quite a bit about, included in this management plan, when you see it, is a lot of background material about, for instance, how the site was historically used by tribal people. My hope, when I talked to him about it, was I feel strongly that we should have some places where we adopt these policies and perspectives that don't have to be included word for word within the management document, but can be referenced. I think it would shorten the amount of work that the stewards have to do. Remember, this is a job the commissioners are supposed to be doing, but the stewards are doing it, and it's a lot of work to put together these management plans, every word of which is important, but if some of it could be extracted and put into a different place, source of information, I think it would be helpful.
Yeah. So that is one of the things you're talking about in your stewardship leadership group, how to condense or simplify the management plan process.
Yeah, for that particular section, we got good feedback from Peter and Amanda, suggesting that that we do work on a standalone document.
Right.
Believe it or not, what was in the plan was greatly reduced from what it was originally there.
I read every word.
So, we have some basis for starting that, but I think it'll take some work for us to get there. And so where we prioritize getting that done in kind of the scheme of things, so.
And we've talked about that in the communications group about being able to put the management plans, in some capacity on the web, but because they're so large, they take up so much space. So any reduction I'm pretty sure that was kind of how it rolled, was that they would take up a lot of space.
You should be able to put a compressed PDF up that should be more than 5 megabytes or so.
Yeah, this is beyond my scope, so I just know that we've talked about it and it's kind of loading up. So anything that's shorter, people will read more, We don't read a lot right now as a society, so it's probably a good idea to keep them short and sweet.
We're gonna go to Facebook management reels for our management.
Whatever works.
Okay, that's it on your report?
So
Okay, that's good. So now we are on to future agenda items. I've been making a long list. So if you want to take the lead on that and then people can chime in.
Well, the ones that I have, so we talked about doing a financial briefing.
Right.
We've also talked about, doing another presentation on acquisition criteria. So hopefully in the next couple of months for each of those. Those are the two on my list. What's on your list?
We have committee assignments we just talked about.
Yeah,
Committee assignments.
that's on my list. And then, I mean, I would like to become more informed about the forest assessment management process and kind of what you get out of that and how that can be helpful. And subcommittees. Other people?
Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think the Turtleback Forest Assessment is available online. Okay.
Peter's
got it.
saying yes.
Yeah.
Peg, do you want to add to our next meeting, we discussed, since we'll have hopefully 2 new commissioners, the role and of the commission and their interaction with the staff,
Mhm.
so that we can just,
Yeah.
give our new people a good foundation.
Right. So we were talking about that, and it'd be helpful, I think, to go back to the ordinance and just see what it actually says and then really discuss that. So we all know exactly what we're supposed to be doing here.
At some point, should we have a discussion about maintenance and the cost of our different conservation easements and our properties?
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure, yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
I don't know who would lead that one. I guess it'd be stewardship. That,
Peter has his hand up.
I just wanted to, I don't know if this is a future agenda item, but we have a draft of the policy and procedures manual outline, and staff will be reviewing that. And then Lincoln will review it, and then we were intending to send it to the commission at the end of January for a review before we provide it to the consultant, because that'll kind of guide the consultant's work. So I don't know how we want to just maybe I guess it's just a heads up that that's coming. Maybe.
and what do you think the timing is on that?
Well, we intend to have it ready for your review at the end of the month, end of January. So
Okay,
I
great.
think I wrote 29th or something.
Okay,
We didn't want to lose sight of the fact that we wanted to talk about agricultural lands at some point. I don't know.
right, and I have that kind of under the acquisition criteria. I do think that probably out of that conversation will come a decision to really do a deeper dive into the ag.
Yep.
And there was discussion about having, looking at our leasing, revenue, how that comes in, but then also
The leasing revenue.
what are we investing in our ag lands? And so, yeah, so those are definitely longer conversations, so we really want to put some time aside. Then it could be workshops or it could be part of the meeting. Okay, so maybe Lincoln and I can talk about time and.
Budget.
Okay. Anything else? Tribal, we always have tribal on the list.
And accessibility. Accessibility is always on the list.
Maybe related to that was in the stewardship report, is the request, that received for the name change at Mount Grant. There's been some other things that have popped up subsequently. County Parks is apparently looking at wanting to incorporate in place names into some county park locations. Frankie sort of punted some of that to Carrie and I, because we've done some work on some place name things elsewhere, or looked into some things. Amanda reminded me yesterday that there was a request at the Lummi event to have the name change of formerly known as Hyde Point. And just kind of wondering what the follow-up was as well. So I think there's a whole bunch of these questions that are kind of starting to come at us from different directions. And a direction that I'm sort of had some conversation with Frankie about, and just think that would be a really good way for us to go, is rather than necessarily bringing a specific name, is to through consultation, just approach with like saying, hey, you know, we're recognizing that there's these names that have been here for since time immemorial. We have these suggestions that are coming at us. How would you like us to engage with you over names of sites in the islands? And recognizing that there may be instances where there's more than one name for a place, so that's okay. That they aren't just the names of the place, they're the names about the place, and so there's multiple stories that just enriches it rather than necessarily being sort of a confusing element for us. So that we're kind of just in the exploratory stages with that. Supposed to be getting a memo back to Frankie and County Parks here over the next week or so, some additional information.
And Doug, I'd love to be looped in on any of that discussion. That this has been a pretty big topic for me. And what you just stated is absolutely the case. Place names are named such for various reasons, and as you start to engage with the various tribes, most places don't have one name. And so as you reach out, you end up with, even within any specific tribe, you may have multiple names for one space based on the experiences of the group that was there. So I tread very lightly into the place name discussion. While I appreciate the motivation, I think we have to be really careful and diligent to make sure that that process is coming from a space that is received well by all. And the intention is great, but it's also important for us to remember that us from the colonial community, sometimes our intention isn't necessarily received correctly. And as Jay Julius stated in a forum following that event, Hyde Point / Tila Keech, which is the Lummi name for that location, his statement was, I don't need you to rename it because we already have a name for it. And I thought that was incredibly enlightening, that they truly have a name for it. And we have a name for it. And many other people have a name for it, but they're comfortable with their name for it.
To be continued.
To be continued, probably for a very long time.
But it's a good entry point to have that as an opening rather than get sort of bring something specific. It's just more like, hey, how do we want to engage? And this gives us something really specific to work on. And I agree, it won't be like a one and done sort of process, but it's a good touch point.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
public comment. Any public comment? I don't think well, a few people here. Anybody have any comments? Okay. Hearing no comments, I guess we can adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
A bit early.